Well, in the year 2000, very much at the very height of the internet boom, I took a year off, as meaning, no client work, called it the client-free year, and to really set that year aside to do little design experiments. This, has been now 7 years in the past, so I have a fairly good idea of, was it worth my while or not? And it turned out it was. Lots of things came out of it. Rearranged the whole trajectory of the studio. Before that, we used to do mostly work for the music industry. We reduced that down quite significantly, and a number of other things came out of it. For one, the thinking, or at least the initial idea behind this book we had just published, things I've known in my life so far, as well as probably most importantly, we found the joy of being a designer within that year.
The things that you've learned, they came out of a diary entry during that year.
Yes. Yeah. So I've always kept a diary, but probably kept it a little bit more consequently and a little bit more thoroughly in that year, simply because I had more time. And the thinking went somehow like this. I think there was a time in the very beginning of the year when I really thought that I might want to become a film maker instead. And that seemed pretty appealing. And I also knew that it's going to be roughly about a 10-year process. And as I was making a plan of how that could possibly work, this 10-year process, how I would make it, work financially, it occurred to me that maybe it could be smarter to actually spend some time thinking about what I could say in the language that I already knew how to speak, graphic design, rather than throwing that language away and learning a new language, filmmaking. And of course, I was then aware, and I'm now aware, that the two allow you to say different things in different levels of depth. I think that considering that as a graphic designer you have the attention of the audience normally for a very, very short while, there is it's limiting in a way. And I myself as a consumer am always more touched by, let's say, a novel than by a short story, or by a feature-length movie than by, a little 60-second piece. Nevertheless, there are things we can say in a very short while. So when after that year we received clients, or we started to get clients that gave us an incredible amount of freedom, I basically jumped on that and thought, okay, now that we have the freedom, let's see if there is something that is possible to say within this 30 seconds or 60 seconds that is not necessarily a promotional or an advertising message. That really was the idea.
And when you did the first of these, which I believe was Everything I Do Always Comes Back to Me?
You know everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you think, as you were doing that, were you thinking in terms of a series of these? Or?
No. When we did the first one, I didn't think of a series at all. The idea for a series really only came out after we received a lot of feedback from the first one. I had figured that this is a pretty self-indulgent thing, and that I didn't expect that we would get any feedback. And when we received, all this mail asking for prints to hang into their bathroom, or allowance for redoing the sentence in their own style, so there was all sorts of mail coming in. It was only then, it was then plus the fact that we immediately had a second client asking for a very free project that it continued. Second one was a suburb of Paris that asked for billboards.
Right. And that's an interesting element to me, because although this is clearly a very personally driven project, it's also a very client-driven enterprise. I mean, you do need the commissions ultimately.
Yeah. in which really is the main reason why when I'm asked strangely quite often, if I think that this is graphic design or fine art, I answer for the former, because it's done by a design company, published in media that are clearly design media, billboards, jumbotrons, projections, and so on, and they have a purpose besides the self-expression part of it. They clearly have to function as pieces of design do. You know, I re-quoted Donald Judd often, who at one time said, design has to work, art does not. And if that definition is true, then these things clearly have to